there is a very serious controversy building up in the Nigerian oil and gas industry, and not a lot of people are paying attention to it. This is bigger than Dangote and his refinery. This is bigger than the Malta controversy. This is tending towards state capture. And now, because of how sensitive this topic is, nothing I say in this video is my opinion. I'm going to be showing you articles and news sources. We are going to be reading it together, and you will form your own opinion based on everything I'm going to present to you. So this is not me giving you any information. We are going to be reading information together. Also, I am not an oil industry expert. What I do is real estate. My company will build houses, will sell houses. So if you want that, you can call me. However, I have a lot of passion for the oil and gas industry. I had a short stint there. I almost read petroleum engineering in the university. I ended up reading mechanical engineering. I have a lot of friends there. So I'm up to date with the happenings in that industry. So that is enough about me. Let's jump into the story. And we're going to start from this article by Sahara Reporters. The headline says, Nigerian state-owned oil company NNPC Retail surrenders control to OVH Energy, operator of Oando assets, which it acquired. Now, before we delve into this article, I want to explain some basic things about the oil industry to you. The oil industry is divided into three parts. You have the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream sectors. The upstream sector has to do with the extraction of crude oil. So those people that bring the crude oil out of the ground, they are called the upstream. The downstream has to do with the processing and sale of crude oil byproducts. So you take the crude oil to the refinery, it brings a couple of products for you, and then now have the filling stations. So that is the downstream, the processing and the sale of crude oil byproducts, so petroleum products. And then the midstream has to do with transportation of these items around. So you have the storage tanks, the pipes and everything. That is the midstream. So oil companies, they usually have two arms. There's an arm that handles the upstream, so in charge of drilling of crude oil, and then there's an arm that handles the downstream, filling stations, refineries. So with this basic information, let's go back into the article. Nigerian state-owned oil company NNPC Retail surrenders control to OVH Energy, operator of Oando assets, which it acquired. The court ruling effectively dissolves NNPC Retail, the primary importer of petrol in Nigeria, and transfers its ownership and operations to OVH Energy Marketing Limited, which now assumes full control of the entity. NNPC Retail, the downstream arm of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. Remember I told you, they have the section that deals with the upstream, and then you have the one that deals with the downstream. NNPC Retail deals with the downstream arm of NNPC's business. OVH Energy, which I'll be explaining more to you later, deals with Oando's arm of the downstream business. NNPC Retail, the downstream arm of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, has ceased to exist after a court-approved transfer of its ownership and assets to OVH Energy Marketing Limited, a company it claimed to have acquired. What does this mean? You transfer assets to a company that it claims to have acquired. Let's get more details on this. And for this, we are going to go to NNPC's website. NNPC themselves are going to their website. So this is from NNPC's website, October 1, 2022. NNPC Limited acquires OVH Energy downstream assets. In line with its vision to maintain leading position in the Nigerian petroleum downstream sector, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has acquired OVH Energy Marketing, owner and operator of the Oando downstream assets. Remember, upstream, downstream. Through this acquisition, NNPC Retail Limited will build on the existing success of OVH and operate model service outlets leveraging OVH extensive asset base and commercial capabilities. Speaking at the ceremony in Abuja, the board chairman of NNPC Limited, Senator Mageri Okadigbo, said the acquisition brings over 380 additional filling stations under the NNPC Retail brand in Nigeria and Togo on our journey to attaining 1,000 filling stations. We will be the largest petroleum product retail network in Africa. So basically what happened here is that NNPC's arm of the downstream sector bought Oando's arm of the downstream sector. Basically, NNPC's filling station bought Oando's filling stations. And if you notice in your area, you see that all Oando filling stations changed to NNPC. So this was an effect of this buyout that happened October 2022. And note, this was 5 months to the presidential election. So obviously, there is something fishy here. And this was what prompted Atiku to release this statement. Let's go over Atiku's statement, recent statement. So this is as reported by This Day newspaper. Despite exiting oil downstream in 2015, Atiku accuses the Tinubus of owning OVH. In a statement by his media aide, Paul Ibe, Atiku argued that just as Alpha Beta, Primero and others act as Tinubu's proxies in Lagos, managing critical sectors and generating revenue for him and his family, he has begun to replicate this at the federal level. He expressed astonishment at the operation of the NNPC and how the government-owned oil company has allegedly put its retail arm under the control of OVH, a company in which he said Oando, led by Wale Tinubu, owns 49%. In October 2022, just 5 months before the elections, the NNPC Retail controversially announced it had acquired OVH and all its filling stations. NNPC already had about 550 filling stations across the country, but claimed it was enhancing its capacity by acquiring OVH. The NNPC did not disclose the purchase of OVH or the terms of the acquisition. A Freedom of Information Act requested by Premium Times was also rejected by NNPC, which claimed to be a private company despite being government-owned. So basically what Atiku is saying here is that in October 2022, NNPC paid Oando, a company owned by relation to the president, a certain amount of money to buy out their filling stations. However, these same filling stations have now been handed back to Oando in a very shady deal. Let's dig deeper into the cost of that transaction, and we can get this in an article by Business Day. So this is Business Day, February 1, 2024. NNPC pays 140 billion naira for Oando branded retail stations, Jetty and others. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited paid cash amounting to $325 million for the acquisition of Oando branded retail stations and a reception jet in Apapa, among other facilities, its latest financial statements show. So from what we just read, according to Business Day, NNPC paid $321 million to Oando to buy out their filling stations. However, according to Atiku, these filling stations have now been controversially handed back to Oando. Now, this day newspaper reached out to Wale Tinubu, the relation to the president, to hear his own side of the story based on these Atiku's allegations, and this is what he had to say. When this day contacted the group executive officer of Oando, Mr. Wale Tinubu, on the allegation by the former vice president, he vehemently refuted the allegations, insisting that the company has no stake in OVH. He stressed that as far back as 2015, Oando sold the stake in the downstream to OVH, wondering how it is being dragged into the matter in 2024. We are not the ones that sold the company to NNPC. We sold that company as far back as 2015. He should stop bullying us. They have been telling lies in public. He should not drag us into their politics. Oando bought the company in 2000 or 2022 from him when he was the chairman of privatization, and we sold the company during Muhammad Buhari's administration. We don't own anything there. It is deliberate falsehood. As a publicly quoted company, we issued a press statement when we sold that company in 2015. So Wale Tinubu is saying that Oando sold off their downstream company a long time ago in 2015, and they had nothing to do with the acquisition from NNPC in 2022. And NNPC also released a statement yesterday supporting this claim by Wale Tinubu. Let's go over NNPC's statement. OVH acquisition, the facts, by NNPC Limited. The attention of NNPC Limited has been drawn to a press release signed by Mr. Paul Ibe, a media advisor to former President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. In the statement, the former vice president was quoted to have lamented the criminal hijack of the NNPC by corporate cabals around the current president. At the time NNPC acquired OVH in 2022, Oando, in which Mr. Wale Tinubu has equity interest, had fully divested its equity in OVH to two other partners, Vitol and Helios. Oando actually began his divestment in 2016, with Vitol and Helios coming in as equity partners, leading to the change of name from Oando to OVH. In 2019, Oando fully divested his equity interest in OVH, resulting in Vitol and Helios holding 50% equity interest respectively. So what NNPC is saying here is basically what Wale Tinubu said, that Wale Tinubu sold this company in 2015, and when they bought it in 2022, Wale Tinubu had nothing to do with it. It was a new company formed by two foreign companies, Helios and Vitol. Now let's dig deeper into the details of this transaction, and we are going to get our information from the website of the three companies that were involved in this transaction: Oando, Vitol, and Helios. So we are going to start from Oando. This is on Oando's website, July 1st, 2015. Oando, Vitol, and Helios embrace strategic partnership. Oando PLC, an integrated oil and gas company headquartered in Nigeria, has entered into an agreement with HV Investments, a joint venture owned by a fund advised by Helios Investment Partners and the Vitol Group. for a cash investment of $276 million in Oando downstream business. The post-investment 100% ownership structure is reflected in the voting rights below. Oando PLC will hold 49%, HV Investments will hold 49%, and the Nigerian Helios affiliate will hold 2%. This unique partnership will allow for accelerated expansion and increased investment for Oando's downstream within the sector, while the organization's management structure will remain unchanged and directors instituted to the boards to represent Vitol and Helios. So basically what Oando is saying here is that they sold a portion of their downstream business to a company made up of Helios and Vitol. So out of 100%, they sold 49% to HV Investments, which is a makeup of Helios and Vitol, H and V, and then another 2% to a Nigerian company that is owned by Helios. So 49 plus 2 is 51%. Then Oando now retains 49%. And on top of this, their management structure remains the same. They'll just add 2 members to their board representing Helios and Vitol. This is from Oando's website. Now let's go to Vitol's website reporting this same transaction. Press release regarding completion of Oando transaction. Oando concludes recapitalization and partial divestment of equity stake in its downstream operation to a consortium of Helios and Vitol. Oando PLC, Nigeria's leading indigenous energy group, listed on both the Nigerian and Johannesburg Stock Exchange, has announced a 210 million recapitalization of its downstream operations by HV Investments, a joint venture owned by Helios Investment Partners, a premier Africa-focused private investment firm, and Vitol Group, the world's largest independent trader of energy commodities. As a result of this, and further to the announcement on June 30, 2015, a new company will be formed to hold interest in Oando Marketing Limited, Oando Supply and Trading Limited, Apapa SPM Limited, and Oando Chipmart Limited. Oando PLC will retain 49% shareholding in the newly formed corporate vehicle, with the consortium owning 49% and the residual 2% owned by a local entity. The new company will be renamed OVH. What does OVH stand for? Probably, this is my assumption, O for Oando, V for Vitol, H for Helios. The new company will be renamed OVH to reflect its ownership structure and the commitment of its new shareholders. OVH will be led by a local management team tasked with building the business safely and efficiently. Under the new business structure, the initial board will consist of Mr. Wale Tinubu, Group Chief Executive Officer of Oando, as the chairman. OVH assets, listen to this, OVH assets will comprise over 350 service stations in Nigeria with supporting infrastructure. Remember, this same number was what was reported on NNPC's website. This same number was what was reported on Oando's website. Now let's go to the website of the third partner in this transaction. This is Helios' website. Helios/Vitol Consortium to acquire majority stake in Oando's downstream business. A consortium comprising Helios Investment Partners and the Vitol Group today announced that it has reached an agreement to acquire 60% of the economic rights and 51% of the voting rights in the West African downstream business of Oando PLC, an integrated oil and gas company headquartered in Nigeria, for a sum of $270 million, subject to the receipt of regulatory approvals and customary purchase price adjustments. The new downstream and retail business will be established as a standalone independent company led by a local management team. Could this standalone independent company be the same OVH that was mentioned on Vitol's website and which NNPC alluded to in their press release, even though NNPC says that Oando had nothing to do with this new company, OVH? Let's continue. Its assets will comprise of over 400 service stations in Nigeria with supporting infrastructure. So from all that we have read, who is actually telling lies? I'll leave you to be the judge of that. But let me just quickly summarize everything that we have read. So in 2015, Oando got into a partnership with some foreign companies, Helios and Vitol, to sell off a portion of their downstream business. These foreign partners paid $200 and something million for this portion of Oando. Now they created a new company called OVH, probably meaning O for Oando, V for Vitol, and H for Helios, who were the three parties to this transaction. So they formed this new company. And now in 2022, NNPC now bought this new company for $320 something million. However, in 2024, NNPC has now given back this company to the people that they say they bought it from. The dispute now is who exactly owns OVH currently. Oando is saying they do not own it. NNPC says Oando doesn't own it, that they gave it back to the owners. Who are the owners of this new company? Remember I told you that the oil industry is divided into three parts: the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream. All these things we have been talking about is the downstream. However, Oando just made a very strategic purchase in the upstream part of the oil industry. Let's go into the details. So this is from Oando's website. Oando PLC completes $783 million acquisition of ENI subsidiary, Nigerian Ajib Oil Company. Oando, Nigeria's leading energy solutions provider, listed on both the Nigerian Exchange Limited and Johannesburg Stock Exchange, is pleased to announce the successful completion of the acquisition of 100% of the shareholding interest in Nigerian Ajib Oil Company from Italian-based energy company ENI or NI for a total consideration of $783 million. This acquisition is a significant milestone in Oando's long-term strategy to expand its upstream operations and strengthen its position in Nigerian oil and gas sector. Transaction highlights. The transaction increases Oando's current participating interest in OMLs 60, 61, 62, and 63 from 20% to 40%. Now, I'm not making any conclusion on this matter. I'll leave you to digest this story, and may God help Nigeria.